Hi, everyone. My name is Angel Truesdale, and I want to thank you for attending Pitch Perfect, a workshop for librarians presented by the Entrepreneurship in Libraries Conference. After our introductions, we will transition right into our workshop on how to pitch, followed by our illustrious panel, and then end with some discussion and reflection. The Entrepreneurship in Libraries Conference hosts workshops and conferences on how libraries and librarians support entrepreneurship in their communities and campuses. Our events are free and online, which include a diverse mix of public, special, academic librarians, and partners from several countries. The ELC is for and by information professionals who support and believe in the power of inquiry and information to transform lives and support entrepreneurial endeavors. While the ELC leadership is international, the ELC is officially hosted by Blink, the Business Librarian section of the North Carolina Library Association. Since its founding in 2003, Blink has been a community of public, academic, and special librarians who value networking, supporting each other, and offering frequent and free workshops. To learn more about the Entrepreneurship in Libraries Conference, you can visit our website at entrelib.org or entrelib.org. On behalf of the co-chairs, we want to thank our planning team and today's presenters. All right. We also want to thank our sponsor, EBSCO. EBSCO Information Services is proud to continue its support of both today's Pitch Perfect webinar and the upcoming At the Table Pitch Competition. A few years ago, the Urban Libraries Council documented that one of the top barriers to libraries being actively engaged in supporting economic development in their communities was the perception that libraries were not viewed as key players in supporting entrepreneurs and small businesses. Today, you will learn the skills you need to change that perception in your community. You will also learn how you can put those skills into practice by participating in At the Table. This pitch competition provides you with an opportunity to refine your library's message to its economic development ecosystem and maybe win money to support your work. EBSCO thanks the Entrepreneurship in Libraries Conference for this opportunity to fund their work and helping all of us discover the entrepreneur that is inside all of us. We want to thank Duncan Smith from EBSCO for being a part of our planning team and to also supporting the ELC today. Now we will have Steve Kramer, who's going to talk about pitch submissions.
So here's really why this is happening. Angel read the short text from Duncan from EBSCO, and they kindly are sponsoring $5,000 for us to give away to libraries who need a little funding in order to better reach their economic development community or job hunters or nonprofits or small business or entrepreneurs. So it's a way to get more engaged with your community. And to make this possible, we have on May 19, I'm putting this in the chat, our actual pitch competition. It'll be similar to the one that happened in 2020. It was a project led by Orlando Duffus and Natalie Bloss. And we decided it's time to do it again. So we're doing this again. Some changes to it, but largely it's similar to what we did 2 years ago. And so there is a short submission form. And as you can see, we're asking just for some basic data. And I'm just going to copy this one last thing into chat and then probably leave it at that for now. So 500 word submission, I mean, it's pitching, right? It's concise. I think that's something we may hear today, that pitching is meant to be a very concise, like elevator pitch sort of example. So 500 words, and you can see in that block of text up in the chat what we're looking for, mainly what audience, what problem you're addressing, what resources you have and or need, what source you provide, and then how would you assess the impact. And just a reminder that the scenario here is you pitching to partners, not to librarians. So Chamber of Commerce, entrepreneurs, a government office, if that's relevant, etc. So that you're pretending you're pitching to partners. And on our May 19 event, you actually be the 5 finalists, and I should mention money to Angel, shouldn't I, before I turn it back to you. We'll be pitching to at least three judges. We're still working on hiring the judges. Most of them have said yes, and we'll publicize their names and biographies in a week or two. But the judges are going to not be librarians. They're going to be people who do this for a living, who work with entrepreneurs, economic development, job creation, entrepreneurs, nonprofits. So it'll be realistic in that you'll be pitching on May 19, at least 5 of you hopefully will be, exactly to the audience we're intending. On the ElePitch page, which I put in a chat earlier, but here we go again, you'll see a list of basically the awards. So the top winner will get $2,250, followed by $1,500 for third place, and then the fourth and fifth place winners. We're not, we won't really tell you if they're fourth or fifth, or just say the last two get $250. So the top 5 people who pitch on May 19 all get something. $250 minimum, $2,250 maximum. Also, we're giving away a repeat we did last time, and it was really fun, and also, though, I think important, $750 in addition to that other money I already stated to the audience award winner. It could be that the top prize by the judges is also the audience award winner. Last time it was not, so we had that kind of interesting take on that, and I think that's very interesting and healthy and useful to have that as well. So more details will be posted on that link as we finalize the submission process, but submissions are open now. So please think about what you might want to submit. Any kind of library is open, public, special, academic, everything else as well. And if you have any questions about pitching, please let any of the co-chairs, Keely, Angel, or me, Kelly, Angel, and me, excuse me, know, and we will be happy to follow up with you one-on-one. Angel, was that good? Anything else I should add?
That was perfect, Steve. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so we're going to get started. Let's get into the meat of our work today. If I can get this to change. All right, so we are pleased to welcome Jenn Hensel. She's the founder of ElePitch, a startup consultancy focused on pitch and presentation coaching. Based in North Carolina while serving nationally and internationally, Jenn brings years of experience in speech writing, program design, accelerator management, and pitch coaching. She worked with hundreds of entrepreneurs to help them walk on with confidence and walk off stage knowing they left their best impression. Please welcome Jenn Hensel.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here again. I was actually part of that first group. Here we go. All pulled up and ready. The first competition last year. So it's really nice to be back, and I'm excited to be able to be in a position to share ahead of time some of kind of my tips and tricks on pitching. I want to make sure that we set you all up for success in terms of, as Steve said, just reiterate, like, making sure that when you're going out to ecosystem partners and really trying to be a player in that field, that you're received in the way that you want to be received. And so today we're going to go over pitch structure in a very traditional sense of what a pitch is. And I have tweaked it a little bit for your purposes, but for the most part, you're going to see the structure that I encourage entrepreneurs to do when they're looking for capital as well. And then some of my kind of top tips on just public speaking in general. So we'll get started. So more than anything, if I were to get cut off right now, what I need you to understand is the best thing you can do for yourself, even though you're only looking at a 5-minute pitch, is to write a script. And it feels really awkward and uncomfortable, and it doesn't feel like that would be a priority use of your time. But it is for everyone who does public speaking. When you write your script, you're able to sit back and edit it later. Whereas if you're only practicing ad lib over and over and over, you're never saying everything the same every time, which means that you're not capturing your best lines and you're not capturing efficiency. And so to make sure that you fit in the time that you have, I really, 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 really can't recommend enough writing a script. And then practicing. Again, we're all pretty good public speakers. Like in professional life, we all have to do public speaking. We give presentations, and we have for our entire career. And so it seems like it's a really easy thing to do. But when there are stakes on the line, right? When there's money on the line or a partnership opportunity on the line, it really does matter to be polished and to work yourself into a place of being confident and making sure that the audience knows that you cared enough about this to have put together a really great presentation, practiced well, and then to watch others. So if you're not familiar in the pitch space, I encourage you to watch things outside of Shark Tank. Shark Tank is cool for its own kind of reasons, but I really encourage you to find maybe an incubator or accelerator near you. There's some that Steve and I could probably tell you to Google that are local to us in Greensboro, North Carolina, and just watch entrepreneurs pitch, and you'll begin to get a feel for the sequence and kind of the pattern and topics that are covered in an entrepreneurial pitch. So I know one of the things that you all do as serving entrepreneurs in your library systems is support entrepreneurs as they go through their learning journey. And so anything that I share with you today, feel free to share with them as well if you are in a position to help them with pitches, but definitely for them, for entrepreneurs, have them watch other people pitch, so YouTube or whatever. So we're going to do a quick workshop. We don't have a ton of time today, so it's going to feel really fast, but what I want to make sure is that everybody has a piece of paper and a pen and that you can jot some things down as we go today, okay? So I always start out with all my clients having them identify what the goals are for this particular pitch. So I want you to take 1 minute and write down why you're pitching. And think of some other clarifying statements that will help you get there, such as how will you measure your success? How will you know that you did a good job? And what does this particular audience need to hear? So not generic, but why are you pitching? How can you measure its success for this particular audience? So I'm just going to jump in here and help you out a little bit. There can be multiple goals for your particular scenario. You could be pitching for funding to fund a particular program. You could be pitching for partnership. Your goal could be to bring on ecosystem partners, collaborators. You could be pitching to bring in the actual customer, the user of your program, right? You could be pitching at the end of a program, showing some of the success points to civic organizations, that kind of thing. So lots of different goals. Usually with entrepreneurs, I move them past the funding as the number one reason they're pitching to try to find some other key areas where they can measure their success. Okay, so hopefully you have your goals down. So we work to start out every pitch by telling a compelling story. And we do this because the human brain is wired to follow stories rather than ad hoc pieces of information thrown at you at a time. What we want is for the audience to remember us and to remember our message. So if we know what our goals are and we align that to our message, and we want to make sure when they hear the next pitch that comes right after us, we want to tell a really compelling story. We really want to take some time, jot down right now some opening lines or stories that you might be able to use to get the audience excited about what you're about to share. So we don't start off a pitch with just, hi, my name is. It's not how we start a pitch. We start out by grabbing someone's attention, having an emotional play, asking a question like, how many of you today have ever pitched before, right? That's something I could have started with. Or by describing in detail a pain point within a situation, right? Or sometimes it's starting off telling the story of the impetus for starting a business or a program. And it can even be starting out with just a simple why statement, a belief statement about why this work matters to you. So take a minute and write down some ideas for your opening line. Okay, we're gonna move on. So for you and for any entrepreneurs that you come across, a pitch really needs to hone in on the problem that you're solving. So whatever problem it is that you've identified in your ecosystem with your customer base, your patrons, as librarians, you call them patrons. So if you've identified problems in your community, your ecosystem, within your patron community, how are you solving it matters as much as what it is you're solving, and ensuring that the audience has an upfront understanding of that problem. So what we're trying to do here is make sure that we are not assuming that our audience understands the problem we're solving, because they aren't living in the same system that we are. They don't see the same things that we see. So we have to lay that as a foundation so that everything else as a domino lines up. The problem that you're solving is really important. So do you need to spend some time in history or education of the problem? So in your scenario, do you need to spend time showing some of the data around unemployment rates in your community, or showing data of increase in entrepreneurial support organizations, something like that, right? What is it that you're trying to solve? Making sure that you take the time to explain that. So jot those notes down. And I will tell you, this is one of the hardest parts for most entrepreneurs, because they live in what I like to call solution land. It's all about the solution and the benefits and the features that they're building out and how cool their program or their business is, but without understanding why they're building it and really understanding the problem and how important that problem is and the pain points associated with that problem, we might not care about the solution. Okay, in the interest of time, sorry, this workshop goes fast, but I promise you'll leave here with a whole page full of the starting of your script. This is the basis for your script that I'm giving you. Okay, so the next component you would cover is your customers or users, your patrons, if it were. You are going to use some segmentation description, especially if there are different segments that your program aligns to, so that we as the audience understand who directly it is you're serving and how. And talk about the pain points. So again, when we talk about pain points in entrepreneurship, we talk about the emotional reaction to having that problem, to experiencing that problem. So pain points are not, I'm trying to think of a good example with you guys. Pain points, I don't know, Electra, I may have to have you help me out, because you guys did a great job explaining your pain points last year. But what we want to do is just ensure that I understand your customer, right? So when this is an entrepreneurship and it's an entrepreneurship pitch, this makes very much more sense. I have to know exactly who your customers are, who your users are, if they can afford your service or product, why it is they're going to use it, and how you're going to market to them. So when you're thinking about your pitch as a librarian and pitching a program, it's the same thing. Think about who it is you're serving, why they need you, how you're going to access them, and describe as much of them as is necessary to help people understand who it is you're working with.
Right, and your audience might not know public librarian, academic librarian, special librarian. So all of those things to sort of segment and give a little bit of history on is really helpful.
Awesome, thank you. Thank you. All right, so the next piece of this structure is then getting to the solution. So we've identified the problem and you've told me who has that problem. Now you're going to tell me how you're solving it, how you propose to solve it, right? What is your thesis? And the value or benefit that you're bringing to your customer or your user. So we really want to tie the whole thing together. Again, not having your audience make assumptions about what it is you're doing. When I do pitch prep work with entrepreneurs, we make sure that like a 4th grade level can understand what it is they're doing. Even if they're doing some software as a service business or some complex medical device, we want to make sure that every step along the way is simplified. I understand your problem. Yes. I understand your customer. Yes. I understand your solution and the value that that solution brings back to that customer. So it all ties together. So have a couple bullet points here, jot down a few on the value or benefit that your program is going to offer to your patrons. And I know all of you are good at figuring out your value and describing that, because so many of you go after grants, and this is very similar to a grant process, right? Where you're showing your impact. That's what this section is for. Okay, so the next piece for entrepreneurs is really important and really easy to forget. And that is making sure that you have identified a business model and the industry and market size that you're operating in. For program development pitches, this might not be as necessary, but I do recognize that for some ecosystems, there may be a business model component that other ecosystem partners might need to have play a role in a program. So you as a public library might be delivering your part of the service for free, but if you're in collaboration with others, potentially they are requiring some upfront cost from the community or something like that. So what is the business model? Is it, a service model? Is it a freemium model? So those are some of the things that you can kind of think about. I'm guessing that for most of you, the business model itself isn't going to be as important. But again, if you're looking at like continual funding or funding over time for this particular program, kind of year after you do this inaugural year, something like a business model that's going to show how it can remain in perpetuity would be really important. So whether that looks like funding comes from, a 5-year grant or something like that, helping people understand. So, and then your industry and market size, you all understand that you guys are geniuses and my favorite people, because you help entrepreneurs figure out their industry and market. So I'm not going to talk to you about that. But the next section is going to be on competition. So again, with founders, we talk a lot about competition and differentiation and kind of what is their secret sauce, and really drawing out from them what is their secret sauce. With you all, I really want you to think about it less as competition, but I don't want you to forget the idea of competition, but also think about collaboration, because that's very much the place that you're going to be playing. I worked for 4.5 years with the Greensboro Chamber of Commerce, and we were considered an ecosystem partner, right? And so I worked with a lot of other ecosystem partners, and we would collaborate to do stuff together. I loved it when the libraries were involved with what we were doing. And so it's always good in an ecosystem. From the competition point I told you to think about, just do a quick survey of your community to find out if there's anyone else, any other ESO, entrepreneurial support organization, if there are any other ESOs in your community offering the same or similar service to a same or similar demographic. And the reason why is, in an ecosystem, sometimes the ecosystem is large enough where 2 organizations can be offering the same type of service and it doesn't dilute. It really adds community value. But there are other ecosystems, especially in the smaller scale, where if I'm doing a program and you do the exact same program and we're drawing from the same customer segment, the person who had the program before probably isn't going to love that you're doing it, right? If it's in direct competition with them. So just do a survey of your community, figure out what it is you want to do, and who else is doing similar things, and can you work with them to make it happen, right? Can you offer improvement to their program with the little niche that you might bring, the special sauce that you might bring, or make sure that you identify how your program is different so that they don't feel, I don't know if threatened is the word, but you know what I mean, so that they don't feel like we're drawing from the same well. So spend some time, jot down here, who's your competition or collaborators, and how are you different or offer improvement to them? All right. Then again, in the innovation world, we talk a lot about traction and milestones. Those are probably words that you've heard. If you have watched Shark Tank or watched some other pitch competitions, you know that every entrepreneur has a traction slide. So here's how a traction slide can translate for you. What is the business or program timeline that you're setting out for yourself? what are the major successes that you have to date? You know, when did the idea start? How many partners have you brought on board? Do you have any additional funding? You know, have you secured logistics, right? So just help people understand that this is a ball moving forward. This isn't just a great idea, but it's something that has some traction. Okay, so think a little bit about your timeline. And maybe for some of you, again, if this is in the idea stage of a program, maybe major successes to date could be some other programs that your organization has done that are somewhat similar or serving a similar clientele, or something that shows how you as a librarian and how your organization is playing in the ecosystem, is supporting entrepreneurs and economic development, those kind of pieces. So what is it that you guys have done, if it's not this particular program, that shows success? Okay. And then the team slide. So this is where we want you to validate your expertise. Okay. So when we talk with entrepreneurs, sometimes that can be, you know, you got your master's in the health sciences, and then you went off and did something else, but that 20 years ago degree still has an impact on the business you're building now, for example, right? So we're validating your expertise along the way. Did you work for a major corporation at one point that gave you insight to that industry? Did you, have you worked on other startups before that give you, you know, some understanding of the startup world, right? So we're validating your expertise and showcasing the team. So I will tell you that one of the slides that all like venture capitalists, all funders look at for the longest and really do a lot of research around for entrepreneurs is the founding team. So whether those are co-founders or advisors, board members, mentors, the team makes a huge difference in showcasing the entrepreneurs deserve the funding that they're asking for, that they will do well with the money, that they're experts in their fields. So think about how that looks for you with your particular pitch. What is your background? Maybe you are putting together a service for veteran entrepreneurs, and your background is as a veteran. That's an amazing connection that gives you insight that others might not have. So that's your background. Who else is on your team? And most importantly, why are you the ones that can do it? Okay. And then financials and forecast. If you've seen pitches, you know that this is part of it. Entrepreneurs need to show their pro formas, past revenue, future forecasting. I would recommend that you include some of this as part of the thesis for your program, right? Where is your funding going to come from? How is it going to be sustainable? Whatever that might look like for your particular kind of program. I wouldn't say with a program pitch, this is nearly as necessary as it is with founders, with entrepreneurs, but I threw it in here so that you knew that that was part of what everyone is looking for. Okay. And then your growth strategy. So what you want to do here is give people the future view of how you plan to be successful. So jot down here's some questions that can get you to kind of like develop your roadmap. What do the next 1 to 3 years look like? How are you going to grow strategically? So for you, what does growth mean? Does it mean number of participants? Does it mean like a certain amount of outcome? What are the milestones that you'll be held accountable to achieve this? And how do you plan to get there? So a roadmap could look like we're going to 3 ecosystem partners and our city council and our chamber of commerce and our local university to develop blah, 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 blah. That collaboration piece, that's one part of your roadmap. And it's really great to give people that full view of how you're going to get this done. Okay, and then last but not least is your ask. And for you all building programs, especially thinking around who you might be pitching this to, define 2 to 3 things that you could use assistance from the community on. So is there a part when you look at your team or your roadmap that you're like, man, that's a big gap? And if we don't feel that, we might not be successful. Is that something I could pitch to my Chamber of Commerce and see if they can come on board and provide additional support and value to make sure that what we're doing makes sense? Right, so refer back to the roadmap, to conversations with mentors, to experts, to other people, other librarians you might be networking with, to really think of, my ask is not probably just around funding. It's likely around partnership and support. And so make sure that you ask for that. If you don't ask, there's no way that you're going to receive. So we want you to end a pitch with asking for help, very direct help. Okay, so real quick, questions, then I have a few tips if we have time to get to them, but I want to honor time for questions.
Feel free to type in the chat or unmute everyone. We'll take maybe a couple minutes.
Just leave this up here if people think of any questions. Yeah, Terrence.
Hey, thank you very much for the presentation. Sometimes I've seen people trying to anticipate questions that they're going to receive from an audience and then have like a bunch of extra material.
Mm-hmm.
Is that smart, or is that a waste of time? And
It's
what kinds
very
of things make sense to put in that if it's not a waste of time?
It's an amazing question, and it's actually something I did. So you'll see these last 3 slides I have on here, they're only if we had time for them. It's a very strategic decision. I recommend to all of my clients that they do this. So the reason is you only have a certain amount of time, and in pitch competitions or events, there's a strong cutoff, right? And so you want to have materials that you can talk with the audience after. If you have a demo table or whatever that looks like, networking time, you want to have something that you can pull up real quick and show people. So the components that you might put in that for entrepreneurs are additional funding information, additional like deeper dive pro forma stuff. So a lot of times on the financial slide, you're going to give a very broad overview, maybe like a 1 year back and a 3 to 5 year future forecast. And it's really just going to be, you know, like costs and revenue. It's not going to be really deep, but on your appendix, you would have a full pro forma laid out. You might have a deeper roadmap. You might have a longer list of contributors. So when we think about pitching, we think about efficiency. And then that appendix, that addendum is what else might someone ask me that I can pull up on the spot and verify that I've thought through it, that I've done the work, and that I'm prepared to talk about it. And those are really the reasons why I think it's strategic to do, so that you know, people know that you're prepared and you have your stuff together.
And then we just have one question in the chat. How long is the average pitch?
So that's a good question. The average pitch is anywhere from 2 to 10 minutes. And the reason that average is so wide is because there's so many kinds of pitch competitions out there. So I've run pitch competitions at a 2-minute lightning round and kind of a 4-minute standard. I'd say 4, 6, and 8 are very, very standard in the competition world. Then when you get to like real VC funding, like when you're really going to talk to angel groups or investors, oftentimes those are private meetings and you have a lot longer amount of time. So the entrepreneurs I work with have multiple decks. They're going to have a 2-minute deck, a 4-minute deck, an 8-minute deck, a 20-minute deck. And they're all the same, right? They're all branded. They're all similar information. It's just the depth in which they go into any of them is based on the amount of time that they have. So I am really keen on coaching people to 2-minute presentations and know that it's possible. Most people come to me and say it's absolutely impossible to tell you all about my business in 2 minutes. And I'm like, it's not. The professionals can do it. And you guys, I think in this competition, you have 5 minutes. So let me put your mind at ease. Is that right, Angel? It's 5, right? So you guys, that's enough time. I promise you, if you do this work of all the scripting we've done in the workshop, I promise you that you can do this in 5 minutes. And don't complain about it being 5 minutes, because that's a long time.
Is it okay, Jen, to use your notes while you're talking during your pitch?
Good question. I would say know your audience. I would tend to say, like, my initial reaction for most of my clients would be absolutely not, like never, ever, ever. It might depend on how strong an anxiety someone might have around public speaking. There may be someone who really, really and truly can't make it through without a couple index cards. But by writing the script and practicing the script, you can get to a place where you're using the slides as cues and you're really telling that compelling story without needing notes. I mean, I've just seen too many scenarios where people are shuffling papers and that's the sound the microphone, picks up on, or they drop their note cards and they're bending over and picking them up. And then the note cards are in the wrong order. And then they're completely lost because they're relying on a tool that is outside of their body. And we want your pitch to be like really coming fully from like your brain and from your soul. And so my reaction is no, but know your audience. Maybe you're coming with like a really kind and supportive audience. Not all audiences are like that.
So you're saying just go ahead and just be natural, be yourself.
I really, really, really would recommend it. Yep. But again, that's why having a script and preparing ahead of time makes all the difference. I wouldn't, if you had not practiced a speech at all, I would say maybe you do need to take notes in with you just to make sure that you hit the high points. But if you've prepared and practiced, I would say do it without it.
Thank you, Jen. Do you want to do your tips really quickly before we go to the panel?
Sure, I can. So I just want to remind everyone that your tone really matters, to talk clearly, slowly, loudly, in that level of anxiety, to fake it till you make it. So I tell people to channel kind of their favorite rock star or talk show host and just impersonate them for that 5 minutes that they're on stage. And really remember that your body language tells a story. I recommend always, as much as possible, use stats and data because it backs up what you're saying. Everything you say is somewhat subjective, but when you use statistics based in research, right, it's a lot harder to argue with you. So put as much statistics and data in there as you can. I think those are the good tips. Those are the fast tips.
Thank you, Jen, so much. If everybody wants to give her virtual round of applause. I'm going to turn it over to Teresa now so we can transition to our panel. Thank you so much, everyone.
Great, thanks, Angel. And Jen, I think you said it best when you said, let your pitch come from your soul, because as a presenter looking for the pitch, you need to bring that energy to the table that's going to be contagious to those that you're either looking for funding from or looking to engage. You don't want those stakeholders to be on your team. So like you said, let it come from your soul. So great segue, Jen, into the next portion of our workshop today. Joining us today are Electra Greer, Hannah Taylor, and Tina Barber. Thank you to our panelists for being here with us today. Any questions that the audience has throughout this next section, please feel free to put them right in the chat, and our moderator will be circling back to those at the end. So let's go ahead and jump right in with our panel. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Electra, go ahead and kick us off here.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Electra Greer, and I am the director of a small library up in Colorado. And you will see immediately, within 15 seconds, that the hardest part for me with the pitch competition was slowing down and my tone. So thank you, Jen. So yeah, that's a little bit about me, public library service, and I think we'll answer a few more questions. So excited to see Hannah, because I voted for her.
So thanks, Electra. How about you, Hannah? Give us an intro.
Appreciate you. Yeah, I'm Hannah Taylor. I am with Mid-Continent Public Library out of the Kansas City metro area. That is Kansas City, Missouri, not Kansas, but we love Kansas all the same. Yeah, and I love a good pitch competition. I am a small business specialist, so I have the fun job of working with a bunch of small business owners who may be looking for funding or maybe having to write that grant. And so this was a fun way for me to test my knowledge a little bit and make sure that I was giving accurate information to the people that we get to work with. And so good luck to everybody competing this year. And the best part about it is that public speaking is a good skill set to have. And this is a great way to practice with amazing librarians, because librarians are pretty much the least judgmental people in the entire world. So it's a great practice for everybody.
Thank you, Hannah. And Tina Barber, a friend and a mentor in this very space. Thank you for being here. Tell us about yourself, Tina.
Thanks, Teresa. I'm really happy to be here, so thank you for the invite. My name is Tina Barber. I'm the program officer at the Community Foundation for South Central New York. I hope you are all aware of the community foundations that are operating in your area because they're awesome resources. My background is 35 years of nonprofit administration and academia. So even though I'm kind of on the other end, right, on the other side of the table, so I'm the funder in this scenario, I have been on your side. So I've written almost $1 million in funded grants and made pitches over the years, either myself or with a team, and have reviewed probably literally thousands of grant proposals at this point. So really can try to lift the veil for you about what folks are looking for when they're either listening to what you have to say or looking at it on paper. We are a huge funder of libraries, huge supporter of libraries, have our own library fund. And I'm the Friends of the Library for my own local library. So I'm really looking forward to the conversation.
Great, thanks, Tina. So as we think about our audience today, Electra and Hannah, you're two of the 2020 pitch event winners. And if you can share with our audience your experience of going through that pitch competition from mentorship to pitch day, and then how the funding was used in your own communities. And Tina, you were part of SLA 2021 panel, Grant Seeking a Funder's Perspective. And you talked a little bit about how foundations work with community program funding partners as community partners for libraries. Can you share with our audience a little more about what you do as the foundation grant coordinator, and also talk about what a successful library application pitch looks like from the perspective of a funder? Yeah, okay, super. Electra and Hannah, kick us off.
I guess I can start off. So I'm actually going to jump into something that Steve said when he first began talking about the difference between the audience reaction and sort of the audience public award, and then who sort of quote unquote won it from the judges, because that was a really interesting, fascinating takeaway. And it ties into what Jenn taught me. So I'm going to share my favorite Jenn story. So like many librarians, we all can be a little fragile. And she right away, ugh. So I was so excited about this. Okay, I'm going to look into the right video. So I was so excited. I was always a big sort of Shark Tank fan. I've been a librarian over 15 years, and I've always been like, why aren't we doing more of that kind of stuff, more forward thinking, this kind of thing in library land? And so when I saw this happen, I was so excited, jumped right onto it, applied, and had this idea of like, I've seen them, and I, saw myself as someone who does a good job with grant writing, and I was like, oh, I've got this. So I was so thrilled. So myself and my colleague went to do our first training with Jenn, and I'm like, and all over the place, and she goes, so you're pitching a program for your library that supports small businesses by doing videographic services to help them during COVID, to help their marketability and all these things. Let's look at your production value, Electra. And I was like, what is she doing? And so she immediately honed in on not writing a grant, different audience than library land, library lovers. And also those whole key things about what's production value, some of the stuff that she already, talked about with her slides. What are your analytics? What, my favorite thing, conversion rate. I'll always think of, when I hear Jenn, I'll be like, conversion rate, she changed my life. And my religion, no, maybe not. So anyway, so that, my experience going into it was very excited, very enthusiastic. When I got to Jenn, she really, really calmed us down a little bit. You won't really see that from the video, but did calm us down a little bit. And I had said to my colleague, just after we met with Jenn, how it's sort of corny to say, but after we had our session with her, I was like, okay, we don't even need to enter. We've already won. Like, we've learned so much. And I know that's really corny, but it's true. Like, it really helped reframe how to look at things. And so that ties into what Steve mentioned. So when I was in the pitch competition, she's right. We were nervous more than we thought we would be. I do have a sensitivity because I get very excited. You can see my voice gets very high. I'm like all over the place. So it was really like, having to chain down my arms. The script, so true, because you think in your heart so much, like, this is about public service, this is about doing good. Who doesn't believe in my idea? Like, I really came from that point of view, and it was really helpful to have to anchor that. But what I feel like, I wrote a couple articles about this afterwards, because my takeaway was, when I was listening to the pitches as a librarian, I was listening to different pitches, and there were two that I was just like, give them the funds, give them the money. It's like, it was my heart, my librarian heart speaking. And so it was interesting at the end that it really, Hannah and I were winners on that. And it was really about seeing, okay, your audience that's really going to put funding and resources into, what are the other things that they're looking at? It's, it's that whole thing. It's not just passion and heart. It's, are you prepared? Have you done your research? Have you gotten the ball rolling? And fortunately we had, and we did put a lot of work into it. It was a program that we'd already sort of begun. So we'd had some mistakes. So we had a lot of things to talk about. So that was really, really interesting to me. And so that was one of my key takeaways, and that I want to share with everybody that's going to do this, is to really just sort of think about, again, you're pitching sort of to an audience of people that are going to be, providing the funding and wanting to see kind of different results than just maybe we're used to always in library land with, public service. And the last thing I'll say, and I hand it over to Hannah, is I've always been a big believer, and this is really kind of cemented it for me, that all of us in public service really taking those, the wisdom and the tools from the private sector are really important. And that we tend to sometimes go, private sector versus public sector. I'm like, no, I personally believe the golden middle way is both. And so I think this is just, I've said this to so many colleagues. I've done lots and lots of professional development, and hands down, this was the professional development that I've encouraged my team, and we're going to have some other people being involved, that has really fundamentally changed my perspective towards librarianship and our successes, which I can share with you later. And we've had a few, so that's been great. So I'll be quiet now.
I guess I could just start by saying, is anybody really surprised that Electra did so well in this competition? Because when you look at her, and we talk about body language, right? Like Jenn talks about body language. I mean, when you look at Electra, she's smiling and she's happy and she's using her hands. These are all things that, it does matter what you're saying, but it really matters how you're saying it, right? If you're speaking with conviction and you have a smile on your face, I can't tell you how many times I have told people to smile. First of all, I hate that. I hate telling people that they need to smile. Don't smile if you don't want to. But when you're smiling for money, hey, why not? Let's put on a cheerful face and let's do it. But it really does make a big difference. My experience with the competition was different. It was great all the same, but I had obviously I was working from home during the pandemic, and we had converted a little guest bedroom, which was less of a guest bedroom, more like a large closet, into a little makeshift office. We had a 4-month-old who was a lot of crying. And so I was like, oh yeah, pitch competition. Yep, that's, in 3 hours, let's do this. And so preparation is key, right? And like I said, if you're speaking with conviction, and no matter what you're pitching, if it's something that you're passionate about, passion does really take you a long way. But having those statistics to back it up, and our pitch was very food truck focused, which we know is a pretty big stretch for a lot of people when they think about libraries and how they can help their communities. They don't necessarily go to food trucks, but you know, we like to play outside of the box a little bit. But you know, being able to know in our heart like that food trucks is where we can really excel. And yes, we want to help all small business owners, but at that point in time in Kansas City, we have such a large, thriving food truck community that were completely gutted by the fact that there was no more foot traffic. Like, people weren't eating, they didn't feel safe eating, not only at restaurants, but especially at food trucks. There's already a stigma about like the dirty, nasty food truck. We have to already get over that. Now we have to get over the fact that people aren't buying out of food trucks. So being able to help them in that way, and it helped people achieve their dreams as well. Hollywood definitely glamorizes food truck ownership. Buy a truck, like get some cool like clothes, hippie it out, like get on the road, park it, make some burgers, like do your thing. Well, we know that it's our job as librarians to shape that a little bit and say, yeah, that's a really great dream, but this is what it's actually like. So our pitch was doing this food truck program, this half-a-day workshop, and being able to get the feedback not only from the judges, but also from, you know, all the other librarians that were attending and watching. It was validating is a good word. Like, it's good to know that people think what you're doing is a good idea, because our ego is pretty big. We already think that we do like really good work, but it's also good to get a little pat on the back from it. But yeah, preparation is really everything. I'm with Jenn. I say, if you have notes in front of you, those are a crutch. You will 100% be staring down at your notes instead of staring at the camera. And if you've prepared enough, you don't need those notes. You don't need them. It's going to slow you down. Look at your slides. Look at the things that you've created. Be creative with those. And even if it's something like adding a picture into a slide that's letting you know, oh, this picture is triggering me to talk about this one thing. Therefore, I don't need notes. I'm looking at my presentation. So yeah, it was great. I love it. I'm like excited to watch them this year. And I like libraries, and I like pitch competitions, and I like food trucks. I'm a very simple person.
Hannah, I have to tell everyone, I started a book truck, a librarian on wheels, after this. I'm like still a librarian, but it's got me so into the private sector, and I used your resources. So y'all, I'm driving cross country, and I'm stalking you all and taking all where you all live, because I'm bringing my book truck to sell it, whatever events you have going on. But Hannah, like, your resources were amazing. So I'm like, it's like a book truck. I'm like, it's a food truck, but with books. So
Yeah,
I have to tell you that.
That's what I tell everybody. I'm like, literally, if you have a business that's just not in a box, but is on wheels, these will work for you. Like, you don't have to be a food truck owner. You could take food trucking accounting if you just need to know accounting, because that's the gig. But yes, I'm excited about your book truck. We don't have a book truck. We have a reading rocket, because, you know, bookmobile's old school, I guess. I don't know.
I love those ideas. Well, thank you, Hannah and Electra. I'm sure there will be more ideas on wheels coming out of this conversation and moving forward from the audience. So Tina, jump in. Tell us a little bit about what your thoughts are.
My thoughts so far are, wow, I wish I could accept application by pitch instead of written applications, because it's just so amazing to actually, hear folks pitch their ideas rather than see it on paper. But because the volume of applications we get, that's just not something we can do right now. But Teresa had said to talk a little bit about what my role is. I'm a program officer in a coming up on $40 million endowed community foundation, right? So I'm responsible for granting out 5% of that endowment every year. And my primary job is really to build relationships with the organizations that come to us looking for funding. Funding is almost the least of it. All right, so if they get money from us, that's awesome. But I want them to step away from their time with us being able to pitch to anybody, being able to approach any funder. And that's how I see my role. So it's really not just, you've given me your application and now I'm going to kind of shepherd it through the process. It's what do I know about you? What do I know about what you want to accomplish? How can I hook you up with other funders and other organizations? So if you have a community foundation in your area and it has a program officer, I really encourage you to take advantage of that relationship and invite them out to see what you do and tell them about what you do, because we are an amazing resource. I mean, I have here that one of my major roles is to know stuff. It's like I'm the person that knows stuff. So if I have people call me all the time. Can you help me with a strategic plan? Do you know somebody who does X? Can you hook me up with a funder that might be interested in this? You just know stuff. And I love that. So it's building capacity kind of beyond the dollar. Now, that being said, my primary role is to help people get money from us. Okay, so I don't make the decisions about grants. We typically have panels that I'm convening that make those decisions. So my job is really focused on the organization. And when I do my annual workshop on how to write a grant and orient people to our process, it's always about how to put your best application forward. I can't guarantee the panel's gonna choose it, but I can lift the veil and tell you what they're looking for, right? And I can help you build that capacity. Because I'm gonna be honest with you, and I'm sure many of you will feel this, 95% of the people that are coming to me, that's not, grant writing is not what they were trained to do. All right, it's not, it's just something that's kind of been shoved on them, put on their plate as an extra thing that they're doing, right? They're not experts. So how can I help them communicate what they need to communicate to get funding, not only from us, but from other sources of funding as well. So let's lift that veil for a minute. We'll talk about this. Absolutely, 100%. Jen alluded to this, Electra and Hannah certainly demonstrate this, is enthusiasm for your project, for your organization. If you're not enthusiastic about it, it's a heavy lift to ask a panel of people that may or may not know what you do to be enthusiastic about it, all right? So do you love your library, and do you love the programs that your library offers to the community? And can I, is that communicated to me and my panel through the written word, right? So you're almost at a disadvantage with us, but remember, so we're a little bit different, but we're also, our major function at a community foundation is charitable asset management. So we are also literally making investments into the community, just like a pitch, just like a for-profit would do as well. So we're looking for the same things. So definitely Electric, I think can teach a master class in enthusiasm. So if you need help, I'm sure that she can offer some technical assistance.
Ooh, a new service model for
That's
me.
right.
Maybe as a new profession, just put her next to you and wind her up.
The other piece, and definitely this has been alluded to by Jen, is you're competing with a bunch of other people. And I will say, yes, you are competing, because in our situation, there's a limited amount of money that we have available to grant out. So you may be competing with up to 40 other organizations, okay? So the first segment of our application is to your horn. All right, so you have to say, look, I understand that you're gonna be seeing 50 other applications, hearing 50 other pitches, but let me tell you what, this is why this is the one you want to invest in, right? You've got to absolutely toot your own horn. Tell me about utilization. Who is using your service? Why are they using it? Why are you providing the best service? Have you responded to emerging needs in the community? The pandemic, oddly enough, was an opportunity for libraries to kind of expand their capacity, expand go outside their walls and really integrate in the community in areas that maybe they hadn't seen themselves engaging in before, right? Where do you want to, where have you recently been, super proud of what you're doing, and where do you want to be? What's your dream as far as programming is concerned? Really communicate that to those panels so that they can say, wow, there's 30 applications in front of us, and there's 30 pitches, and this one, man, these guys have something going on. This is pretty awesome, right? Tell that story. Again, Jen alluded to this, and Hannah and Electra, absolutely alluded to this, but in the, in the body of your presentation, whether it's written or a pitch, insert a story, right? Tell how your service changed something for somebody or changed something for the community. And that really, that really connects with people. Like when I have folks reviewing applications, they want to connect to that application because that's their way of connecting to the organization. They may not ever step foot in the organization. We have a 5-county footprint and get applications from all over the place. So they're looking for a way to connect. That's a, it's a shared human experience, even if they can't actually physically go to your, to where you are at. So tell that story, right? Flip side, right? So you want to tell a story, but you have to be crystal clear about what it is that you are asking for. So I always tell applicants, if you're putting together an application, all right, and say it's free 5 pages, reviewers are looking at 50 of them, they're all 3 or 5 pages, they get to the end of 5 pages and they don't know what you're asking for, that doesn't bode well for you, right? You don't want a cranky reviewer. You don't want a cranky.
Right? No, that does not.
Right. So definitely make sure that you're being crystal clear about what it is you want and why. And when we talk about data to support your application, to support your pitch, it needs to be local data. All right. So folks, I'm just talking about experience with us. If you've interfaced with one community foundation or one foundation, you've interfaced with one foundation, right? Even though there's a million of them. From our perspective, though, don't waste prime real estate telling me about how this is a problem worldwide, nationally, statewide. Okay, if you have a limited amount of time and you're pitching to a local funder, cut to the chase. Why is this a problem in Norwich? Why is this a problem in Owego, right? Because that's what these reviewers are going to be interested in. And why is this particular intervention the intervention that Owego needs to solve this problem? Okay, because interventions are going to vary, right, depending on where you are at and where your community is at. If you need data to support your pitch or your application, by all means, well, I would say contact your program officer because we have all kinds of reports and can point you in all kinds of the right direction. But there are people that know how to access that data to support your application. Find it. Take the time to find it. It'll make your application much stronger or your pitch much stronger. Right?
That's a great point, Tina. Tina,
Yeah.
let me interrupt for just one quick moment here. Angel, I know we're at the full hour. Can we have Tina give her final thoughts here over the next minute or so, and then you do the wrap up? Are we okay on time with our audience? I know we've gone over.
Yes, we still have over 40 people in attendance past the time. So if Tina and the rest of the panel can stay, please feel free to finish the panel. And again, we'll send out the recording afterwards. So we'll have this valuable information captured. Thanks, Teresa, for checking in.
Okay, Tina, back over to you.
Sure. The other piece that our reviewers like to see is, are you able to demonstrate a wide support for your organization and for your project? Or do you have support from the community, from whomever this program is designed to to benefit? Do you have wide support from other funders as an organization? Do you have other funders making investments in you? Can you demonstrate how you are vital to the community at large? Like they really like to see that. And again, when you're pitching, that makes you stand out. It's like, not only do we think we're great, but guess what? I can demonstrate this kind of wide breadth of support for us in the community. And I would say that probably the last piece that our reviewers really like to see, and certainly everybody has alluded to this as well, is who are you partnering with to leverage funds, to leverage in-kind support, to maybe even to break your library out of the 4 physical walls and go into the community. That makes something very interesting and appealing to a funder, right? So you're not contained in your 4 walls and your stacks, but you're kind of breaking out and partnering and leveraging in new and interesting ways in the community with other community partners that have maybe the same goals that you do, and wants to make the same improvements in the community that you're seeking as well. Just to wrap up really quick, my reviewers are instructed to do two things. All right, keep these in mind when they're reviewing. What are they asking for, right? What's the organization asking for? And how likely is the community to get a return on the investment if we decide to make that investment? That's what they're primed to be looking for and listening, in your case, listening for when they're reviewing applications and making choices about investments. I'll be quiet.
No, I have to throw in that I think ROI is the most important thing to emphasize, especially if you're going to be focusing on an audience that's really, again, investor-based versus other public service stuff.
Excellent, thank you. I think there's a lot of overlap here. We've talked a little bit about the pitch, competition pitch, but when you get that pitch down from, as Jenn said, 8 minutes to 4 minutes to 2 minutes, now you're in a position not just to pitch for those dollars, but also to pitch to your stakeholder community for partnerships so that you can go after the larger grant applications, for example, or your S can be larger because now you've shown more leverage with your community. So that pitch can play in a lot of different spaces. So thank you everyone for being here today, for joining us. Put any questions you have into the chat, and Angel, over to you before the dog takes off after the mailman.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone. We will be sending this out. I just want to say that to everyone. We will be sending this out after today. And I want to make sure we get our last slide up here. I want to reiterate what Steve said earlier. Our submissions are open now. If you went to the link earlier, here's what the form looks like. I'm going to pop that in the chat again. And again, if you can save the date for May 19th, 3 to 5 will be the actual pitch competition. A formal RSVP will be coming soon. Again, keep a watch out on our website or wherever you found out about the workshop for today. So thank you, everyone, and we hope that you have a great afternoon wherever you are.
Do this, do this, do this. It is invaluable in so many spheres of your life. I promise you. If you can get Electra to condense something into 2 minutes, it's life-changing, okay?
Thank you so much, Electra. So amazing.
Thanks, everyone.